The day I tore up my medical school acceptance letter, my hands didn't shake. They should have. But after years of making myself smaller to fit into the spaces my family left for me, destruction felt almost peaceful. I'm Livia, and this is the story of how I burned my life to the ground and smiled while I did it. Sweetheart, where did you put Dad's insurance papers? My mother's voice echoed through our suburban house, sharp as always. I need them for the claim. Coming, Mom. I was already kneeling in front of Dad's ancient file cabinet, rifling through folders that smelled like dust and secrets. The drawer squeaked as I pulled it open wider, making space for the beam of my phone's flashlight. Hurry up. Your father needs to submit these today. I bit back the urge to remind her that I was doing her a favor on my lunch break. The accounting firm where I worked was only 10 minutes away, but these errands were eating into my already short break time. Found anything yet? Dad appeared in the doorway of his study, coffee mug in hand. He looked relaxed for someone supposedly desperate for insurance documents. Still looking? I shifted another folder, and something caught my eye. A USB drive taped to the back of the drawer. Weird. Hey Dad, what's on this? He moved faster than I'd seen in years, almost spilling his coffee. Nothing important. Just some old work files. He snatched it from my hand. The insurance papers should be in the blue folder. I watched him pocket the drive, my suspicion growing. The blue folder's empty. Then they must be somewhere else. He waved dismissively. Don't worry about it. Your mother can look later. As I stood up, my sleeve caught on a stack of papers, sending them cascading to the floor. Dad tensed again. Among the scattered sheets, I spotted something that made my blood run cold. A bank statement, not from our regular bank, but from somewhere I'd never seen before. The balance had 6 figures. I'll clean this up, Dad said quickly, already gathering the papers. But I'd seen enough. The date on that statement was from 7 years ago, right when Dad lost his job, right when he told me he couldn't help with my medical school tuition anymore. What's taking so long? Mum appeared in the doorway, immaculate as always. Livia, you're making a mess. Sorry, I mumbled automatically, the word bitter on my tongue. I should get back to work. Of course you should. Mum's smile didn't reach her eyes. Don't forget, your sister's coming for dinner tonight? Try to look presentable? I nodded, already reaching for my car keys. Behind me, I heard Dad shuffling papers, probably hiding whatever else he didn't want me to see. The drive back to work was a blur. Bennett, my co-worker, noticed something was off when I returned. You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. I'm fine. I forced a smile. Just family stuff. He gave me that look, the one that said he knew I was lying, but wouldn't push. That's why I liked Bennett. He never pushed. That evening, I sat at our dining room table, watching my sister Kira dominate the conversation with stories about her PR firm's latest triumph. And then the client basically begged us to take their account, she gushed, waving her fork. We're talking serious money here. That's wonderful, darling, Mom beamed. Livia, sit up straight. And what's that stain on your blouse? I glanced down at my perfectly clean shirt. There's no stain, Mom. Well, something looks off. She turned back to Kira. Tell us more about the client, dear. I pushed my food around my plate, thinking about that bank statement, about the USB drive, about 7 years of scraping by, of living in a cold apartment because I couldn't afford heat, of working overtime just to help pay Kira's credit card bills. Oh, Liv, Kira's voice cut through my thoughts. I might need to borrow some cash again, just until my next bonus. Sure, I heard myself say, the same way I always did. But something had shifted. That bank statement kept flashing in my mind. After dinner, I sat in my car for a long time, staring at my parents' house. The porch light cast shadows across the manicured lawn, and through the window I could see them all laughing in the living room. They looked so comfortable, so secure. I pulled out my phone and opened a new note. At the top I wrote, questions that need answers. Below that I added, bank statement, 7 years ago, hidden USB drive, Dad's reaction. My hands still weren't shaking. They should have been. But sometimes, rage is the steadiest thing you know. I spent the next week digging. Every lunch break, every evening after work, I searched public records and property databases. The more I looked, the sicker I felt. "You're going to want to see this," Bella said, sliding a manila envelope across her kitchen table. My childhood best friend now worked at the county clerk's office, and I'd finally gathered the courage to ask for her help. Inside were property records, my grandfather's estate transfer documents. The dates aligned perfectly with when Dad claimed he couldn't afford my tuition anymore. "There's more," Bella continued, her voice gentle. "Your Aunt Caroline, she's listed as a contested beneficiary. Looks like there was some kind of dispute over the inheritance." I hadn't spoken to Aunt Caroline in years. Mum always said she was unstable, but now I wondered what other lies I'd swallowed whole. That night, I drove to the address listed in the records. Caroline's house was modest but well kept, with wind chimes tinkling on the porch. She opened the door before I could knock. "Livia, my God, you look just like your mother did at your age." "Hi, Aunt Caroline. I need to ask you about Grandpa's will." Her face darkened. "Come in. I've been waiting years for one of you kids to ask." Over tea that grew cold, Caroline told me everything. How Grandpa had left most of his estate to Dad, including his investments and property. How Dad had hidden the inheritance from everyone, claiming financial hardship. How Mum had known all along. "Your mother signed the property transfer papers herself," Caroline said, pulling out an old folder. "See? That's her signature, right there next to your father's." My hands shook as I held the document. Mum's elegant signature mocked me from the page. The date was exactly 2 weeks before she'd told me, "Darling, maybe medical school isn't for you anyway. I tried to tell you back then," Caroline continued. "But your mother, she made sure I couldn't get near you kids." I remembered that time, how Mum had suddenly declared Caroline toxic and cut her off. Another lie in their carefully constructed web. The next day at work, I could barely focus. Bennett noticed, of course. "Lunch?" he offered, holding up a paper bag. I made extra. We sat in the break room, and I pushed my food around while he watched with concern. "You know you can talk to me, right?" he said softly. I almost told him everything. Instead, I asked, "Have you ever discovered something that changes everything you thought you knew about your life?" "Once," he replied. "Found out my dad had another family. Took me years to process it." "How did you handle it?" "Badly at first. Then I realized the truth is better than living with lies, even when it hurts." That evening, Kira called, asking for money again. "Just 1,000, she wheedled. "My car needs repairs." "What happened to your bonus?" I asked, thinking about the property records. "Oh, you know how it is. Bills and stuff. Come on, Liv, don't be difficult." I thought about all the times I'd eaten ramen for dinner so I could send her money. About the medical school acceptance letter I'd torn up. About Mum's signature on those documents. "I can't," I said for the first time ever. "What do you mean you can't? You always can." "Not anymore." She scoffed. "Whatever, I'll ask Mom and Dad." "Good idea," I replied, my voice steady. "Ask them about their inheritance while you're at it." The line went silent for a moment. "What inheritance?" "Never mind. Good luck with the car." I hung up before she could respond and opened my laptop. The document I'd been building was already 30 pages long. Bank statements, property records, timelines of their lies. Each entry was a knife in my back, carefully catalogued and dated. My phone buzzed with a text from Mum. "Kira says you're being difficult. Call me immediately." I ignored it and added another entry to my document. "Mum's Lexus, spotted at the mall last week. Paid cash according to dealership records." The next text was from Dad. "Your mother's worried about you. Come to dinner tomorrow." I thought about their comfortable lives, built on the foundation of my sacrifices. About the medical career I'd abandoned because they'd convinced me it was impossible. "Sorry," I typed back. "Work is crazy. Maybe next week?" Then I opened my calendar and started planning. They wanted dinner? I'd give them a dinner they'd never forget. My hands were steady as I typed, "Dear Mom and Dad, let's have a family celebration next month. My treat. I insist." The pieces were falling into place, and this time I wouldn't be the one paying the price. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Bella asked, helping me organize the growing stack of evidence in her living room. "Once you start, there's no going back." They didn't give me a choice about medical school, I replied, sorting through bank statements. Why should I give them a choice about this? My phone buzzed. Another text from Kira. Mum says you're acting weird. What's your problem lately? I ignored it and turned back to the documents. Each page told its own story of betrayal. Credit card statements showing luxury purchases on days they claimed to be broke. Property transfers hidden behind shell companies. Even their vacation photos had dates that matched times they told me they couldn't help with my rent. Holy shit, Bella whispered, staring out her window. Isn't that your mum? I joined her at the window. A sleek black Lexus was pulling into the mall parking lot across the street. Mum stepped out, dressed impeccably as always. Let me guess, she told you she couldn't afford a new car this year? Bella asked. Said they were still recovering financially from Dad's layoff. I took out my phone and started recording. 7 years of recovery, apparently. Livia. Bella hesitated. There's something else you should see. She pulled up a social media post from last month. It showed Kira at a luxury resort in Bali, dated exactly 3 days after she'd begged me for rent money. The caption says, "Thanks Mom and Dad for the birthday surprise," Bella pointed out. My hands clenched into fists. I remembered eating cereal for dinner that week because I'd sent Kira my grocery money. Back at work the next day, Bennett caught me recording phone calls with my family. Should I be worried? He asked quietly, closing my office door. It's not what you think. What I think is that you're planning something big and probably a little dangerous. He sat down across from me. And you're doing it alone. I have to. No, you don't. He slid a business card across my desk. My sister's a lawyer. Whatever's happening, maybe talk to her first. I pocketed the card but didn't call. Lawyers meant compromise, and I was done compromising. That evening, Mum invited me over for coffee. The house looked different now that I knew its secrets. Every expensive painting, every piece of furniture had been bought with money that could have changed my life. Darling, we're worried about you, Mum said, stirring her coffee. You seem distant lately. I'm fine. Just busy with work. About that, she leaned forward. Your father and I were thinking, maybe it's time for a change. We could help you find something more suitable. Suitable? Well, accounting was never really your passion, was it? Unlike medicine. She smiled that practiced smile. But we both know that wasn't meant to be. My hand tightened around my cup. Why wasn't it meant to be, Mum? Oh, darling, we've been through this. We simply couldn't afford the tuition. I pulled out my phone and played a recording from last week, her bragging to her friend about their investment portfolio. The colour drained from her face. Have you been recording me? Why not? You've been lying to me for years. She stood up so quickly her coffee spilled. I think you should leave. Don't worry. I gathered my things. I'll see you at the family dinner next month. What dinner? The one I'm hosting. To celebrate. Everything. Dad called that night, his voice tight with controlled anger. Your mother's upset. Is she? That must be difficult for her. What game are you playing, Livia? No game, Dad. Just planning a nice family dinner. You'll come, won't you? Both of you? A pause. Of course. Good. Oh, and make sure Kira comes too. I want to hear all about her trip to Bali. I hung up before he could respond and opened my laptop. The evidence file was nearly complete. I titled it The Cost of Lies and organised it chronologically. Every betrayal, every manipulation, every moment they'd chosen themselves over me. Bella texted, You okay? Getting there, I replied. Then added, Found a perfect venue for the dinner. Where? The same restaurant where they told me they couldn't afford my tuition. Seems fitting. My phone lit up with another call from Mum. I declined it, and instead opened my email to send out the dinner invitations. The date was set for exactly 1 month from today. Plenty of time for them to wonder what I knew, but not enough time to stop what was coming. Just confirm the reservation, I texted Bella. Table for 5. Front row seats to the end of everything they built. This time, I'd be the one writing the script, and there wouldn't be a happy ending. The restaurant was exactly as I remembered it. Crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, and the same mahogany chair where I'd sat 7 years ago, crying over my shattered dreams. Now I was back, finalising details for the dinner that would destroy everything. "Miss Livia?" The manager approached with a sample menu. "We can accommodate all your requests, including the private room and the special arrangements." "Perfect." I handed him my credit card. "And the envelopes?" "We'll place them exactly as specified." Back at work, Bennett caught me staring at my medical school acceptance letter, the only copy I hadn't destroyed. "I didn't know you wanted to be a doctor," he said softly. "I didn't just want it. I was accepted. Full ride to Johns Hopkins." He whistled low. "What happened?" "Family emergency," I replied, the old lie tasting like ash. "Dad lost his job. Mum got sick. At least that's what they told me." "And now you know different?" I nodded, carefully folding the letter. "Now I know everything." "Come to the art exhibit with me tonight," he said suddenly, "before whatever you're planning happens. Just remember who you were before they made you forget." For a moment I wavered, but then my phone buzzed with a text from Kira. "Can't wait for dinner. Mom says you're being dramatic as usual, but I'm sure it'll be fine." "I can't," I told Bennett. "I have to finish something." Bella helped me prepare the envelopes that evening. Each one contained carefully curated evidence, bank statements, property records, photos and transcripts of recorded conversations, all meticulously organised to tell the story of their betrayal. "Are you including the medical school letter?" she asked. "That's the final page, along with a copy of Dad's inheritance statement from the same month." My phone rang. Mom again. I answered this time. "Darling, about the dinner," she started. "Your father and I think it might be better at our house. I could cook." "No," my voice was firm. "I'm hosting. I'm paying. Just like I've paid for everything else." A pause. "What's that supposed to mean?" "You'll find out at dinner." "Oh, and Mum?" "Wear something nice. There might be photos." I hung up and turned to Bella. "Did you send the package to the reporter?" She nodded. "Anonymous tip about financial fraud and inheritance theft. Just like you asked. Included enough evidence to make them interested, but not enough to break the story yet." "Perfect." I checked my watch. The IRS notification should have arrived at their office today too. "Livia?" Bella hesitated. "Are you sure about this? It's not too late to..." "To what? Forgive them? Let them keep lying?" I pulled out my phone and played a recent recording of Kira. God, Liv's so pathetic. Still working that dead-end job, living in that cheap apartment. At least she's useful for money. Bella winced. "Okay, your sister's definitely awful, but this might destroy your whole family." "They destroyed me first." I sealed the last envelope. "They just didn't expect me to rebuild myself into something dangerous." That night, I couldn't sleep. I drove to the hospital where I'd once shadowed doctors as a pre-med student. The emergency room lights still pulsed the same rhythm, and for a moment, I could see the life I should have had. My phone lit up with a text from Bennett. "Whatever happens, you're stronger than they know." I started to reply, but another message came through from Aunt Caroline. "They're asking questions. Your mother called today, fishing for information. Be careful." Perfect. Let them worry, let them wonder, let them feel a fraction of the uncertainty I'd lived with for years. I drove home and opened my laptop one last time. The final piece of evidence had arrived, a statement from their hidden offshore account, courtesy of a very helpful bank employee who'd recognised possible fraud patterns. My phone buzzed again. Dad this time. "Princess, whatever you're upset about, we can talk about it. No need for all this drama." I typed back, "Of course we can talk, Dad. At dinner. Bring your appetite, and maybe a lawyer." Then I opened the folder marked dinner preparations and reviewed my checklist. Restaurant reserved, evidence packages prepared, press tip sent, IRS notified, hidden camera arranged. Aunt Caroline prepped for her surprise appearance. Everything was ready. In 3 days, I would sit across from them one last time. They'd smile their practice smiles, tell their practice lies, and then I'd burn their whole world down. I picked up my medical school acceptance letter and traced the words "Congratulations" with my finger. "This is for you," I whispered to my younger self. for everything they stole from us. The countdown had begun. I arrived at the restaurant first, wearing a black dress that cost 2 months' worth of grocery money. For once, I didn't feel guilty about the expense. Tonight was worth every penny. "Everything's arranged as requested," the manager whispered, leading me to the private dining room. "The envelopes are under each place setting." I checked each seat, adjusting the packages slightly. Mum's usual spot at the head of the table. Dad to her right, Kira next to him, my seat facing them all. They arrived together, of course. Mum in her designer dress, Dad in his tailored suit, Kira wearing something that probably cost more than my rent. "Darling," Mum air-kissed my cheek. "This is unexpected. You've never arranged anything so formal before." "I'm full of surprises lately," I smiled, watching her eyes narrow at my tone. "Love the dress," Kira said, but her smile was sharp. "Must have been expensive for you." I managed. I gestured to their seats. "Please, sit." Dad cleared his throat, already looking uncomfortable. "Sweetheart, about those phone calls you've been making?" "Let's order first," I interrupted smoothly. "Wine? I got that Bordeaux you love, Mum. The one you said was too expensive last Christmas." Her hand trembled slightly as she reached for her water glass. "Livia, if this is about money, it's about so much more than money." I waved the waiter over. "But let's enjoy dinner first. After all, I'm paying." The first course arrived. Expensive appetizers they'd never let me order before. I watched them eat, noting how they exchanged glances when they thought I wasn't looking. "So, Kira," I said casually, "how was Bali?" She choked on her wine. "What?" "Your birthday trip. The one Mom and Dad surprised you with last month, right after you borrowed rent money from me." Silence fell heavy across the table. Dad's fork clattered against his plate. "I don't know what you're talking about," Mom said quickly. "Kira was at a work retreat." "Really?" I pulled out my phone. Because according to her Instagram, she was at the Four Seasons Resort. Posted quite a few photos. Beautiful place. Must have been expensive. "Livia," Dad's voice held a warning. "Whatever you think you know?" "Oh, I know everything now." I took a sip of wine. "About the inheritance, the hidden accounts, the properties, everything." Mum's face went pale. Kira looked confused. Dad's hands clenched into fists. "Those are private family matters," he growled. "Family?" I laughed. "Is that what we're calling it? Because family doesn't steal their daughter's future and then laugh about it over champagne." The main course arrived. Perfect timing. I'd chosen their favourite dishes, expensive cuts of meat and seafood they'd always claimed were too extravagant. "Eat up," I encouraged. "Consider it a last supper of sorts." "What does that mean?" Kira demanded. "It means," I reached under my seat, "that I brought party favours." I started placing envelopes in front of each of them, thick manila packages with their names written in my neat handwriting. "Don't open them yet," I said, as Mum reached for hers. "Let's finish dinner first. We wouldn't want to spoil the meal I paid for, just like I've paid for everything else these past 7 years. "Livia, please." Mum's voice shook. "Whatever you're doing—" "Whatever I'm doing?" I cut her off. "I'm simply sharing some interesting financial records, like the bank statement showing Dad's inheritance deposit the same week you told me you couldn't afford my medical school tuition. Or the property transfer you signed, Mum, right before you said medicine wasn't for me anyway." Dad stood up abruptly. "That's enough. Sit down," I said quietly, "unless you want me to call the reporter waiting outside right now." He sank back into his chair, face ashen. "Reporter?" Kira whispered. "Oh yes, they're very interested in the story. Almost as interested as the IRS is in Dad's undeclared income." The waiter appeared with dessert, creme brulee, Mum's favourite. The sugar crust cracked like breaking glass as she stared at her untouched envelope. "Now," I picked up my spoon. "Shall we open our presents? I spent so much time preparing them, almost as much time as you spent lying to me." "Please," Mum whispered. "Not here." "Why not here? This is where you told me to give up my dreams. Seems fitting that it's where you'll lose everything too." I watched their faces as realization dawned. This wasn't just dinner. This was an execution. "On 3?" I smiled. raising my dessert spoon like a conductor's baton. 1, 2, 3. The sound of tearing envelopes filled the private dining room. Paper rustled as they pulled out the contents, their faces changing as they absorbed each devastating page. Kira spoke first. "This has to be fake." "The bank statements?" I asked. "Or the property records? Or maybe the photos of Mum signing transfer documents while telling me we were broke?" "You had no right." Dad slammed his hand on the table, making the silverware jump. "This was private family business." "Private?" I pulled out my phone. "Like this conversation from last month?" I pressed play. Dad's voice filled the room. "Of course we couldn't tell Livia about the inheritance. She'd have wasted it all on that medical school nonsense. At least this way we could control it." Mum's face went from pale to grey. "Turn that off." "Why?" "There's more. So much more." I scrolled through recordings. Should we listen to you laughing about my pathetic apartment? Or maybe Kira bragging about her shopping sprees with my rent money? "You recorded us?" Kira's voice cracked. "Your own family?" "Family?" I laughed. "Let's talk about family. Let's talk about how I ate ramen for dinner for 3 years while you vacationed in Europe. How I worked overtime to pay your credit card bills while Dad hid millions in offshore accounts." "It wasn't millions," Dad protested weakly. "No? Check page 12. The full accounting is there, including the interest earned while I struggled to keep my heat on." Mum tried a different approach. "Darling, we were protecting you. You weren't ready for what? Success? Independence? Or just the truth?" I pulled out my medical school acceptance letter and laid it on the table. "Johns Hopkins. Full scholarship." "But you knew that, didn't you, Mum, since you intercepted the first letter?" "I did no such—" "Page 23, I cut her off. The email from the admissions office confirming they sent it twice. Once to me, once to our home address. Funny how I only got the second one." Kira was still flipping through pages. "These account numbers, these dates. Dad, is this real?" "Of course not," he blustered, but his hands were shaking. "Your sister is clearly disturbed." "Oh, look who just arrived," I interrupted, waving to the door. Aunt Caroline walked in, elegant and composed. Mum's wine glass crashed to the floor. "Hello, Evelyn," Caroline said coolly. "Richard, it's been a while. You have no right to be here." Mum stood up, swaying slightly. "Actually, she does," I smiled. "As Grandpa's executor, she has every right to discuss how his inheritance was misappropriated." "You little snake," Dad snarled, lunging across the table at me. "You planned this whole thing?" "Richard!" Caroline's voice cracked like a whip. "Touch her and I call the police, though they'll probably be involved soon anyway, given the tax fraud evidence." "Tax fraud?" Kira whispered. "Page 37, I pointed. Dad's been busy hiding money for years. The IRS is very interested in their copy of that file." "You sent this to the IRS?" Mum's voice was barely audible. "And a reporter. And Dad's bank. And the medical board where you sit as treasurer, Mum. Should we discuss those misappropriated funds too?" The colour drained from her face completely. "You've destroyed us." Dad's voice was hollow. "No," I stood up slowly. "You destroyed me first. I'm just returning the favour. Please," Mum reached for me. "We can fix this. As a family." "Family?" I pulled out one final envelope. "Read this first. It's a transcript of you and Dad discussing how to keep me dependent on you. How to make sure I never succeeded enough to leave. How to break me down until I believed I deserved nothing better." Kira was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. "Liv, I didn't know—" "Save it." I dropped my napkin on the table. "You knew enough. You all did." "What do you want?" Dad asked, defeated. "Nothing? Not anymore?" I gathered my purse. "The reporter's story runs tomorrow. The IRS will contact you next week. And that medical board audit? Already scheduled. You can't do this to us," Mum pleaded. "Watch me." I turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and don't worry about the bill. I'll pay for dinner. One last time." As I walked out, I heard Mum collapse into sobs, Dad cursing, and Kira's stunned silence. Caroline followed me to the door. "You okay?" she asked softly. "No," I replied honestly. "But I will be." Behind us, the sound of breaking glass echoed as Dad threw something. The manager stepped forward, concern on his face. Should I call security? No need, I smiled. They're leaving. In fact, they're leaving everything behind. They just don't know it yet. I stepped into the cool night air, finally feeling the weight of 7 years lift from my shoulders. My phone buzzed. Bennett. How did it go? Exactly as planned, I texted back. It's done. And it was. Finally, completely done. The headlines started the next morning. My phone buzzed constantly with notifications as the story spread across local news sites. Family fraud scandal rocks local medical board. Prominent couple accused of inheritance theft. Daughter exposes years of financial deception, Bella called first. Have you seen the news? I'm watching it unfold. I sat at my kitchen table, scrolling through the chaos. Mum's already been asked to resign from 3 charity boards. Your sister's PR firm just put out a statement distancing themselves from her. I clicked the link she sent. Kira's company had suspended her, pending investigation. Her carefully curated social media accounts were already disappearing. My phone rang again. A number I didn't recognize. Is this Livia? A woman asked. I'm Sarah from the Daily Tribune. We'd like to get your side of the story. No comment? I hung up, only for it to ring again immediately. The IRS would like to schedule a formal interview, the next caller said. By noon, my parents' house was surrounded by news vans. I watched the footage on my laptop as Mum tried to leave for her weekly salon appointment, only to be swarmed by reporters. Mrs. Summers, did you knowingly participate in tax fraud? What do you say to allegations of inheritance theft? Did you deliberately sabotage your daughter's medical career? She fled back inside, covering her face with a designer scarf that probably cost more than my monthly salary. Bennett appeared at my desk with coffee. You holding up okay? Better than them. I showed him the latest update. Dad's investment firm had launched an internal investigation. Your aunt called, he said quietly. She's worried about retaliation. They're too busy saving themselves. I pulled up another article. Look, Mum's already trying to spin it as a family misunderstanding. My phone buzzed with a text from Kira. They're freezing my accounts, all of them. How could you do this to me? I typed back. How could you do this to me first? The next few days brought more fallout. Dad's hidden accounts were frozen. Mum's social circle evaporated overnight. Their country club membership was suspended. Kira was evicted from her luxury apartment when her company stopped paying her housing allowance. Your father's been asked to resign, Aunt Caroline reported during our daily update call. The board doesn't want the scandal. What about the offshore accounts? Being investigated. The IRS is very interested in those transfer dates. I watched another news segment where former friends and colleagues distanced themselves from my parents. The same people who'd attended their lavish parties now claimed they'd always suspected something wasn't right. Bella forwarded me an email. Mum trying to rally support from family friends. This is all a misunderstanding. Livia is troubled, always has been. We only wanted to protect her. They're still lying, I told Bella, just to a much smaller audience now. The reporter who broke the story called again. We'd like to do a follow-up piece. Your story could help other victims of financial abuse. This time, I didn't hang up. When? The interview ran the following week. I told everything. The medical school dream, the years of manipulation, the calculated destruction of my independence. The reporter included copies of bank statements, recordings and photos. The evidence was undeniable. Dad tried damage control. We made mistakes, but our daughter's actions are vindictive and cruel. The internet disagreed. My story went viral, with thousands sharing similar experiences of family financial abuse. Support poured in from unexpected places. You did the right thing, a medical school admissions officer wrote. Your courage is exactly what we look for in future doctors. Kira made one last attempt at reconciliation. I'm sleeping on a friend's couch. Please, Liv, I'm your sister. I sent back the screenshot of her laughing about my pathetic life choices. She didn't reply. The final blow came when Mum's sister, my other aunt, released a statement. Our family has enabled Richard and Evelyn's behaviour for too long. What they did to Livia was calculated and cruel. It's time for accountability. By month's end, my parents had gone silent. Their house was dark, their cars gone from the driveway. Rumours said they'd fled to a vacation property in another state. Was it worth it? Bennett asked one evening, as we watched the sun set from my apartment. I thought about the medical school acceptance letter now framed on my wall, about the years of lies and manipulation, about the look on their faces when their perfect facade finally shattered. Yes, I said simply, every single second. My phone buzzed one last time. Another text from Mum. We're your parents. You'll regret this someday. I blocked the number without replying. They weren't my parents anymore. They were just people who'd made the mistake of underestimating their victim, and I regretted nothing. The acceptance letter arrived on a Tuesday. I recognized the Johns Hopkins logo immediately, but this time my hands shook as I opened it. Dear Ms. Livia, we were moved by your story. Circumstances beyond your control. Would like to offer you a position in our medical research department. Not as a student, that dream had evolved into something different, but as someone who could help future doctors, support medical advancement, and still make a difference. A different path, but maybe a better one. You're smiling, Bennett said, leaning against my doorframe. Good news? I handed him the letter. They want me to head their financial assistance program for medical students. Apparently, my story inspired some changes in how they evaluate family situations. Are you going to take it? I don't know yet. I looked around my office, where I'd spent so many years feeling trapped. It would mean moving to Baltimore. He set down 2 coffee cups. Funny you should mention moving. I just got offered a position at their art therapy department. My heart skipped. You applied to Johns Hopkins? Someone once told me the truth is better than living with lies. He smiled. Even when it's scary. My phone buzzed, Aunt Caroline sending her weekly update. Your father's appeal was denied. The tax fraud charges stand. Your mother's trying to sell the house, but the liens are making it difficult. I set the phone down without replying. Their problems weren't mine anymore. Bella burst into my office, waving a newspaper. Have you seen this? Kira's giving interviews. The headline read, Sister Speaks Out, How Family Greed Destroyed Us All. She's actually telling the truth, Bella said, surprised. Admitting everything. Says she's in therapy now. Good for her. And I meant it. Kira had been as much a product of their manipulation as I was. She just benefited from it longer. The article included a photo of our old house, now empty and dark. Mom and Dad had fled to Florida, trying to outrun their creditors. Their social circle had collapsed. Their carefully constructed world of lies had crumbled to dust. Ms. Livia? My assistant poked her head in. There's someone here to see you. A young woman stepped into my office, clutching a familiar-looking acceptance letter. I read about your story. I'm having similar problems with my family. They're trying to stop me from attending medical school, and I don't know what to do. I gestured to the chair across from my desk. Tell me everything. As she talked, I thought about all the others like us, all the dreams crushed by family manipulation, all the potential stopped short by people who claim to love us. Take the job, Bennett said later that evening as we walked along the harbour. Help change the system. Break the cycle. Come with me, I asked. He answered by kissing me. The next morning, I packed up my office. The medical school acceptance letter came down from the wall, not as a reminder of what I'd lost, but as a symbol of what I'd survived. My phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. It's Kira. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I'm trying to be better. I thought for a long moment before replying. That's a start. Aunt Caroline called as I was loading the last box into my car. Your mother tried to contact me. Says she wants to make amends. What did you tell her? That actions have consequences, and some bridges stay burned. I looked at the building where I'd spent so many years feeling trapped. The sun was rising, painting the windows gold. Bennett waited in his car, ready to follow me to our new life. My phone buzzed one last time. Mum's new number, though I hadn't saved it. We're still your family, her message read. You can't just erase us. I typed back, watch me, and blocked the number. The drive to Baltimore would take 6 hours. I had audiobooks, snacks, and Bennett's playlist streaming through my speakers. But more importantly, I had something I'd lost years ago. Choice. They'd tried to make me small, tried to clip my wings and cage my dreams. But they forgot one crucial thing. Sometimes, the people you break become dangerous when they put themselves back together. I pulled onto the highway, watching my old life disappear in the rearview mirror. Ahead lay Baltimore, a new career, and a chance to help others fight the battles I'd already won. They used to ignore me at the dinner table. Now my silence was the loudest thing in their ruined lives, and that was better than any revenge I could have planned.